The story is about Sarah, an independent and strong woman who shines in her career as a successful divorce lawyer. However, her personal life is complicated. While she's busy with work, her wealthy husband, Noel, is having an affair behind her back. When Noel receives a call from Sarah, Sarah reminds him to come home for his mother's birthday celebration. Unfortunately, Sarah's mother-in-law doesn't seem to approve of her because of her poor background. At the party, Sarah's colleagues notice how hard it is for her to fit in with her husband's family, who seem to ignore her. Feeling down, Sarah visits her mother's restaurant that her husband gifted to her. Mrs. Park, Sarah's mother, feels lucky that her daughter married into such a wealthy family and is genuinely happy for her. However, Sarah keeps her pain to herself, not wanting to break her mother's heart. Back at home, Sarah encounters her mother-in-law, who tells her to take a bath since she had been with her poor mother. This angers Sarah, who feels that despite all her efforts to be a good wife and daughter-in-law, she is still mistreated. Young-hee insists that being a good wife includes ironing Noel's underwear, a task Sarah hasn't done lately. She also tells Sarah to call her chairwoman Young-hee instead of mother. When Sarah tries to discuss this with Noel, he brushes it off and tells her to just follow his mother's wishes. Sarah finds comfort and fulfillment in spending time with her son, who is the only one who makes her feel truly happy. Meanwhile, we meet Kim Taek and his wife Jang-mi during a heated argument. She asks for an increase in her monthly allowance, as it's difficult to manage on just $200 despite her husband earning millions. However, he refuses aggressively, accusing her of wanting to use the money to cheat on him. This makes her angry, misunderstood, and trapped. In his frustration, Taek drags her by the hair into an empty room. Tired of her husband's possessive and aggressive behavior, she decides to file for divorce. However, Chairman Young-hee pressures Sarah to represent Mr. Taek as his lawyer. Sarah's assistant, Kang-bom, expresses concern for Mrs. Taek, believing it's wrong to let Mr. Taek has custody of their daughter due to his aggressive nature. Despite this, Sarah remains focused on winning the case in Mr. Taek's favor. To counter the domestic violence accusations, Sarah presents fake photos in court, portraying Mr. Taek as the victim. This causes Jang-mi to break down in tears, shocked at the lengths her husband would go. However, Jang-mi isn't out of options. Her lawyer presents evidence of Mr. Taek's infidelity, including photos of him with multiple women and a video of him being affectionate with Sarah's mother-in-law, Young-hee. Unable to continue defending her client, Sarah asks for more time. While discussing the video footage with Young-hee, Sarah receives a call from a prosecutor. She meets with an old friend, Prosecutor Dong, who is surprised to learn she is representing Mr. Taek. He informs her that Mr. Taek's clinic is under investigation for drug misuse. Dong also reveals that Mr. Taek is actually interested in men and only married his wife to conform to societal expectations. Sarah decides to inform Jang-mi, hoping that it will help her gain custody of her daughter from her abusive husband. When Jang-mi reveals the husband's sexual orientation, it leads to a victory in the case in her favor, winning her a huge alimony. However, this outcome angers Young-hee. Seeking revenge, she orders her son to marry the daughter of a new business partner who can help them establish a law school. When Noel asks about Sarah's situation, Young-hee concocts a plan to falsely accuse Sarah of a crime, aiming to send her to prison. Upon learning about the false accusations, Sarah feels angry and frustrated. But there isn't much she can do against them. She eventually has to turn herself in to the police. When Noel visits her in prison, Sarah discovers that he has divorced her and taken custody of their son. As she expresses her anger, Noel tries to explain that this is all part of a plan to establish a law school in the country. Sarah is confused about how this is related to their divorce. So Noel clarifies that he intends to marry the daughter of the chairman of the legislation committee, who can help them achieve their goal. However, Sarah refuses to leave her son in Noel's custody, which angers him. He insists that she accept the situation, as there's nothing they can do about it. A few months later, Noel is preparing to marry his new wife. However, his girlfriend is unhappy about the marriage, especially since Noel already has her. When Dong arrives and overhears the conversation, he becomes upset upon learning that Noel divorced Sarah to marry the daughter of the chairman of the legislation committee. Later that night, the tragic sight of Noel's girlfriend lying lifeless in the middle of the road is discovered. Her grandfather, devastated by the news, protests with a picture of her, insisting that she was murdered and that it wasn't a suicide. Determined to uncover the truth, Dong decides to investigate the case and bring the culprits to justice. Meanwhile, at Mrs. Park's restaurant, a part-timer named Bae-so learns about Yumi's supposed suicide and is shocked, as she had seen Yumi with Noel at the hotel where she works. Luckily, Bae-so had recorded their conversation on her phone and shows it to Mrs. Park. Concerned about No-Yeol's true nature, Sarah's mother becomes anxious and quickly heads to the law firm to meet with Dong. Unfortunately, No-Yeol spots her there. He calls her and asks her to look in his direction. When she refuses to meet him, a man claiming to be Prosecutor Dong's assistant approaches her and takes her away. Moments later, Prosecutor Dong arrives and finds her missing. He checks the camera footage and sees that she left with the man. Around the same time, Sarah meets with Jang Mi. Jang Mi shares that she's been living her best life since her divorce and expresses her gratitude for Sarah's help. She now wants to assist others in similar situations and invites Sarah to join her as a fixer rather than as a lawyer. However, Sarah declines the offer, as she doesn't want to break the law. Soon after, she receives the heartbreaking news of her mother's passing and quickly heads to the funeral. Initially overwhelmed with grief and frustration over her mother's sudden death, Sarah learns from her assistant, Bom, that the police have concluded the case as a suicide. After spending a few more months in prison, Sarah is finally released and reconnects with Jang Mi. This time, Sarah decides to work alongside her. Jang Mi welcomes Sarah into her home and offers her some food. Jang Mi decides to open a divorce fixer company and suggests using Sarah's name. But she also recommends hiring a good lawyer since Sarah lost her legal license after going to jail. Dong, feeling disillusioned after failing to solve Yumi's murder case due to pressure from his corrupt senior, decides to leave his job with determination. Jang Mi and Sarah successfully open their company. They hire Kwon, an expert in computers and hacking, and Bom, who serves as their detective. One day, a woman named Ju-won visits their office. She's the wife of a well-known TV news anchor and wants to divorce her husband because he sexually assaulted a young woman at a hotel. Due to his actions, their daughter has been bullied at school and feels depressed. When Ju-won receives a distressing call from her daughter, she rushes to the school with Sarah, fearing the worst. They find the daughter on the rooftop, acting quickly. Sarah stands at the railings with her and gently persuades her to step back, explaining that this isn't the solution to her problems. Through Sarah's compassionate words, she successfully saves Ju-won's daughter. Later, Jang Mi suggests hiring Dong as their legal advisor. Although Sarah is hesitant to work with him, Jang Mi admires Dong's dedication and insists that Sarah consider bringing him onto the team. After much contemplation, Sarah meets with Dong the next day. Dong is excited to see her after so many years. Sarah tries to keep the conversation professional, but Dong surprises her by asking why she left him that night. This question takes us into a flashback, showing the day before Sarah's wedding with No-Yeol. Sarah, appearing distressed, suddenly runs out into the rain and heads to Dong's house. Dong is surprised to see her, and he regrets distancing himself from her. When Sarah immediately tries to leave, he stops her and tries to convince her to get back with him. However, Sarah just can't do it. In the present, Sarah avoids answering Dong's questions and explains how her CEO wants to hire him as their legal advisor. She asks him to deny the offer so they can avoid further interactions. Hearing this makes Dong upset, and he leaves. However, understanding that Sarah is having a difficult time and needs someone's support, he decides to join the company. The next day, Sarah learns that Ju-won, the news anchor's wife, leaked a private conversation between the victim, CEO, and her husband to the public. She did this to protect her daughter from being labeled as the daughter of a sex offender. To address the situation, Sarah and Dong arrange a meeting with CEO and bring Ju-won along. Ju-won apologizes to CEO for leaking their messages, admitting that she knew her husband had a history of sexually assaulting women. Sarah suggests they work together to take down Anchor Byung. Ju-won then meets with her husband, intending to record his confession about sexually assaulting her 18 years ago and CEO more recently. As they subtly pressure him, Byung arrogantly admits that he felt entitled to have sex with them without consent, believing that as a wealthy and powerful man, he could do whatever he wanted. With the recording in hand, Sarah and Dong head to Chael Law Firm to meet with Anchor Byung's lawyer. After watching the video of Byung's confession, both No-Yeol and lawyer Ma are taken aback. They quickly agree to have Anchor Byung sign the divorce papers under Ju-won's terms, successfully securing Ju-won's divorce. Later, No-Yeol, frustrated that his new wife Han-ji's father isn't proving useful, plans to divorce her without providing alimony. Overhearing their conversation, Han-ji decides to seek Sarah's help and visits her at the office. Initially, Sarah is reluctant to help Han-ji, as she blames Han-ji for contributing to the end of her own marriage. However, Han-ji persistently asks Sarah to take her case, explaining that other law firms are unwilling to go up against Chael Law Firm. Han-ji offers to help Sarah reunite with her son, Yoon, which makes Sarah reconsider her decision. Meanwhile, No-Yeol learns about Sarah's potential involvement in Han-ji's case. He visits Sarah at her new apartment, asking her not to represent Hanji. Frustrated by his approach, Sarah decides to call Hanji and agrees to take her case. The next day, Hanji meets with Sarah and Dong. She reveals that Noyeol has been verbally abusive towards her ever since her father became ineffective. Hanji also mentions that a stranger recently contacted her, claiming to know a secret and threatening to expose it publicly. Sarah and the team begin investigating Hanji's case. Initially, Sarah is concerned about the possibility of receiving alimony from Noyeol, especially since his assets are all in his mother's name. To gather evidence, they decide to retrieve Noyeol's personal USB drive, which might contain information he could use to threaten Hanji. Sarah distracts Noyeol, allowing Dong to search for the USB drive. Once Dong finds it, Sarah leaves the house and returns to their office. Kwon manages to crack the password and access the drive, but they only find a folder with rumors about Hanji and no concrete evidence. With this lead going cold, their focus shifts to identifying Hanji's blackmailer. The next day, Dong introduces a new team manager named Jang. He shows her around the office and then leaves for a team meeting. However, it becomes apparent that Jang might be working with someone to undermine Sarah's company. Later, Noyeol meets with the chairwoman of the Hanju party, who advises him to sever ties with his father-in-law if he wants to join their party and become an assemblyman. In an effort to expedite the divorce, Noyeol tries to call his wife, Hanji, but she doesn't answer. Frustrated, he orders his men to kidnap her and bring her to him. Meanwhile, while Dong is discussing legal matters with Hanji, Sarah accidentally gets kidnapped instead of Hanji. Dong, alarmed, chases after the van. He manages to block their path, causing the kidnapper to flee. Sarah, who tries to follow Dong, is attacked by one of the kidnappers but manages to fend him off until Dong arrives to help. Seeing Sarah's torn clothes, Dong offers her his coat as they return. They speculate that Noyeol might be behind the kidnapping. They then head to a bakery where Hanji is having coffee. Sarah is determined to catch the stalker who has been blackmailing her. Once Sarah identifies the stalker, Dong approaches him to intervene. Realizing he's in danger, the stalker tries to escape. After a lengthy chase, Dong and Sarah almost catch the stalker, but he throws flour on them and escapes. During the commotion, Kwon unexpectedly lets the stalker go, suggesting he might know him. The bakery owner, upset about the mess and the wasted flour, is appeased when CEO Jang Mi arrives with a truckload of expensive flour and gifts Dong a new car to replace the one he damaged while rescuing Sarah. As they discuss the blackmailer, Jang arrives and learns that Hanji's stalker has some compromising videos of her. Later, Kwon visits Sarah and asks her not to report the blackmailer to the police, promising to handle the situation himself. Kwon then confronts the stalker, who turns out to be his brother, Yong. Their relationship soured when Yong didn't support Kwon during his battle with cancer. Kwon breaks into their apartment and steals data from the computer. As he leaves, Jang arrives, hinting at a new plan. She meets with Noyeol and shows him video footage of Hanji with her boyfriend, which Noyeol can use to speed up their divorce. Kwon, feeling nervous, goes to Sarah's house to meet up with her. He asks her for a hug. Just then, Dong shows up and sees them hugging, which makes him mistakenly think they're a couple. Upset, Dong leaves. The next day at work, Dong can't help but feel jealous of how close Kwon and Sarah seem to be. Meanwhile, Noyeol meets with Hanji. When she sees a video on his phone, she gets scared and agrees to sign the divorce papers. However, Noyeol changes his mind after seeing the strong evidence and decides to use it to his advantage. Sarah learns about the situation from Hanji, since the Hanju party plans to choose their assemblyman based on public opinion. Noyeol wants to use Hanji to win people's hearts. While they are out in public, one of Noyeol's hired men attacks Hanji with a knife. Noyeol steps in to protect her and gets badly hurt. People start to admire him for risking his life to save his wife. Upon hearing the news, Dong and Sarah visit him in the hospital. Sarah threatens to expose his dirty secrets, but Noyeol counters by threatening to leak an intimate video of Hanji. To protect herself, Hanji asks Sarah to stay out of her affairs and withdraws her case. When Hanji returns home, she has a drink with her best friend. During their time together, she receives a call from her son's nanny. As promised, the nanny assures her that she'll send pictures of her son every month so she can see him grow up. The next day, the group of 4 goes out for drinks. Dong feels a bit jealous seeing Sarah laughing at Kwon's jokes. However, through their conversation, Dong realizes that Kwon isn't dating Sarah, as he claims to be single. This revelation brightens Dong's mood. The following day, they manage to arrest one of the kidnappers, but he takes all the blame on himself. During a rally, Sarah publicly accuses Noyeol of divorcing her to marry another woman and accuses him of attempting to kidnap her due to his greed for money. Her words go viral across Korea, damaging Noyeol's reputation. Furious, Noyeol visits Sarah at her law firm, demanding that she retract her allegations in a public interview. In exchange, he offers to let her see their son once a month. Sarah refuses and instead demands that he pay Hanji $1 million in alimony. Noyeol leaves the office in a rage. The next day, at a press conference, Noyeol denies all of Sarah's allegations, claiming she's been up to no good behind his back and insisting he never tried to kidnap her. When asked to confirm his statements, Hanji reveals that all the accusations are true and that Noyeol has been threatening her to keep his secrets hidden. Sarah also shows up to support Hanji's claims. Frustrated, Noyeol storms out of the press conference. Afterward, Dong resumes investigating Yumi, Noyeol's girlfriend's murder case. He visits her grandfather, learns more about Yumi, and gets hold of her old phone. Back at the office, Dong discovers a lot of photos she took while she was with Noyeol. Later, Noyeol calls Hanji and asks to meet with her. However, Sarah goes in her place to discuss the alimony. Noyeol initially offers Sarah $500,000 to stay out of his life, but Sarah insists on a minimum of $700,000 to feel justified. This makes Noyeol angry, and he calls his son. When Sarah asks to speak with him, Noyeol ends the call and attempts to harm her. His men stop him and lock her inside the building. As Sarah struggles to escape, a lightning strike starts a fire. Dong arrives, sees the fire, and quickly calls the fire brigade. He rushes into the building, breaks the door lock, finds Sarah on the floor, and carries her out of the building to safety. The next day, Jang searches Dong's cabin for clues and finds a picture of Noyeol with Yumi. She informs Noyeol, who becomes curious and instructs his men to keep an eye on Dong. Later, Noyeol messages Sarah, agreeing to pay the alimony as per their terms. Their ex-mother-in-law disapproves of the arrangement and slaps both of them. Sarah considers returning the slap but decides against it, not wanting to stoop to her level. The next divorce case involves a demanding woman named Choi, who used to be in a relationship with Dong Hee. As Sarah tries to talk to her, Choi keeps staring at Dong, making it clear there's some history between them. Choi claims her husband suspects her of cheating and complains that he only gives her $5,000 as a monthly allowance. She says he became suspicious after seeing pictures of her and Dong on her computer. When Choi takes Dong to a private area to talk, Sarah feels a pang of jealousy. The next day, they start investigating Choi's background. Choi is a YouTuber who posts videos about her relationship with her handicapped husband. They notice that her husband seems to get hurt every week for their videos, which seems odd, so they visit him at their house. Kong, Choi's husband, claims they're not getting a divorce and that Choi is just overreacting to minor issues. They also discover that Kong has never seen the photos of Dong and Choi, indicating she lied about that at their office. Confused about who's telling the truth, they try to piece things together. When Choi arrives, she's angry that they met with her husband without her permission. She then says she needs to talk to Dong alone. So Sarah leaves in a taxi. Choi tries to make Sarah jealous by holding Dong's hand, but he gets upset. She asks him to spend some time alone with her, but he declines and walks away. Frustrated, Choi calls Noyeol, revealing that she's been hired by him to disrupt Sarah and Dong's relationship. That night, Choi meets Dong again and tries to seduce him, just to make Sarah jealous. Sarah can't bear to watch and leaves. Dong firmly asks Choi to leave him alone. Feeling frustrated, she talks to Noyeol's manager about the situation. Sarah overhears their conversation and discovers that she was hired by Noyeol. The team considers dropping the divorce case investigation, but Baum finds a similar case study online. It involves a wife who pretended to care for her disabled husband to gain likes and attention online. However, it turned out that the wife was actually hurting him due to a mental condition. After reading this, Sarah decides not to drop the case and plans to initiate the divorce on the husband's behalf. The following day, we see an argument between the two. Choi becomes aggressive and pulls him out of his wheelchair. However, she quickly becomes more concerned about her expensive purse. When Sarah and Dong arrive, they meet with Kong. Kong starts to suspect that Choi is meeting with other people outside their marriage, especially since she doesn't earn much from her YouTube videos to afford such expensive, limited edition items. Kwon learns that Choi hosts live streams occasionally, offering her biggest sponsors a chance to have a meal with her. To understand how Choi is getting so much money, Kwon decides to participate in the bidding and becomes her biggest sponsor. The next day, he meets Choi at a restaurant. She starts by asking him to play a game. She hands him a tissue paper and asks him to write down any demands he wants to be fulfilled. She then writes the amount he would need to pay for each. Later, Choi asks her husband, Kong, to celebrate their third wedding anniversary so she can record it for her fans. At the party, Sarah shows up as their guest, During the live stream, Kong seizes the moment and requests a divorce from Choi. Dong arrives with the police, and Choi is arrested for domestic violence against her husband. This way, Sarah and her team successfully help Kong escape his abusive marriage. The following day, Noyeol calls Sarah and tries to manipulate her into believing that Dong is only working with her to secretly pursue a case he's hiding from everyone else. Later, as Sarah stands outside her law firm, she notices Noyeol in his car. When Dong arrives to talk to her, she suddenly pretends to kiss Dong while Noyeol watches.